So thanks a lot for talking to us. And how do you assess, a year after the work of your mission back then at the site of the crash, and also the access to the crash site, the cooperation with the Ukrainian authorities while speaking about this tragedy?
The OSCE Special Monitoring Mission has two concrete tasks within its mandate. One is to report on the situation on the ground and make these reports available to the participating states of the OSCE and the public in general, as well as the conduct of dialogues on the ground. And the two pillars in the mandate that were given to us by the participating states, these two pillars also guided our work with regard to the downing of MH17 a year ago. There we have facilitated for those who wanted the access to the crash site, and on the crash site itself we have been reporting regularly to the participating states on our findings and how we saw the situation changing on the ground from the very first day after the downing of the aircraft, then throughout the months following, and we continue to do that. Throughout this process we had close cooperation with the government of Ukraine, both here in Kiev, but also on the ground with the respective ground commanders of the Ukraine armed forces, which was necessary to ensure the secure and safe access of our monitors to the crash site and away from the crash site, including also those who were then in company with us, for instance, the media representatives, but also the Dutch-led recovery mission that was at times up to 40 vehicles together that were following our convoy onto the crash site.
And what were the main challenges Special Monitoring Mission faced while working both on the government-controlled side but also on the side which was controlled by the separatists?
Specifically for this operation, we had no specific obstacles on the government side. The crash site itself was in the beginning deep within so-called DPR-controlled territory. And at that time, of course, the biggest challenge was then to reach the crash site, navigating and negotiating through these rebel checkpoints along the way until we have then reached the crash site, which was an area the mission has not visited before. It was the first day the mission has ever been there in that specific area, so it was new territory for us and therefore also rather complicated for us. Later then in the operation, the contact line, or the front line if you wish, moved further south towards the crash site, and indeed actually led across the crash site in the end, which made the work of us monitors and that of the Dutch-led mission and also that of the journalists very dangerous, and often had to be interrupted because the fighting actually was being conducted on the crash site itself in the later part of the operation on that site.
How would you describe this thing? We all remember very, very well these images of you working there, of your colleagues. So what was there? It was a pretty unexpected place. So what were the people feeling? How it looked? How the people talked to you?
Well, it is true. We have been arriving there. We were not the first ones on the scene. The rebels themselves were there before. Lots of journalists were already there when we arrived. We came just within 24 hours. The plane has actually crashed on that site. We drove onto the main crash site, which was also a site where there was a lot of fire, the burn site as it has been referred to later on. And we have seen when we were approaching the site, the debris already from the distance, big parts and big chunks of the plane lying there in the fields. And when we came closer, of course, we have seen more of the devastation, including the bodies lying across the field exposed to the elements, as well as their personal belongings that you could immediately see on that stretch of road that led through the crash site, on which side, on both sides, we have seen these items lying there.
And did you have a chance while, talking to people, maybe explain a bit more of this atmosphere? There is something unique with this unfortunate and very tragic event. Also if you speak about the rebels and the locals and...
Well, indeed, this is any plane crash is, of course, something very tragic. And if a plane crash occurs in an area of conflict, it's even more tragic because these civilians that went on holiday or onto conferences in that plane had no idea over what territory they were flying. They had no connection whatsoever with the conflict that happened on the ground, and all by a sudden they were drawn into these, and of course died, all of them, in that tragic incident. It is of course also a traumatic event also for those residents that lived in these areas. These are small villages, not big towns, small villages. They experienced this coming down of this aircraft. We have been speaking in the days after our arrival there to local inhabitants that were just living next door to where the plane came down and burned in high flames. And they, of course, told us the story how they've seen the plane coming down. And they were also traumatized because they also have seen these bodies lying there in the open, in the hot sun, until they have then been removed some days into the crash.
And how does this work of the mission and of expecting the site and anything connected to MH17 crash is going on now, and what is yet needed to be done?
Well, we have throughout the period, apart from our reporting on the crash site itself, we have been providing access through our dialogue facilitation with both sides. And the work that has been done by the Dutch-led recovery mission has done different phases. It has recovered the bodies, of course, which we have also facilitated. Also the transport of these bodies, the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission has facilitated. They were loaded up in Torres, being brought through rebel-controlled territory with us and the Dutch-led mission on board that train, then crossed into government-controlled territory and then ended up in Kharkiv, from where the bodies have been flown home to the Netherlands. We also have been facilitating the collecting of the personal belongings of the victims. That also has been done through our negotiations with the rebels there on spot, and also the transport of those belongings by train to Kharkiv was also done by us. And at a later stage, also the recovery of the wreckage parts themselves has also been facilitated by us, including the transport. And we continue to facilitate access for whoever wants access to the sites. But it's important to mention here, if I may, is that the investigation or the work itself is not conducted by the mission. This is conducted by those that are competent to do it. We facilitate the access of these experts to the sites and also report on what work they are conducting there, and these reports have been made available to the public.
And for how long it had taken to remove all the what has left on the site? For how long the whole this, the intense part of it had been taking place?
Well, again, I'm not the expert to comment on that, whether the job is finished now or not. What is certain is that we have until this year, until this summer actually, continued to facilitate access to the Dutch-led missions there on the spot.
So they're still working there when it's...
They still request access, which we facilitate. On what exactly they undertake, you have to either refer to our reports or then to the Dutch mission itself.
But still, on the opinion of the Special Monitoring Mission, what is lacking now to get a better picture of events which had happened and to assess them? What could be done still?
Well, as in any incident of this scale, there needs to be an investigation. The investigation needs to be done independently by those that have the expertise and have the mandate to do that. And this will take time. This is a huge event. It came down in a very complex environment, in a war-like environment. The facts have now to be established by this commission, and once that is done, of course, a conclusion can be drawn. This is a conclusion to be drawn not by the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission, but by those that are competent to lead this investigation.
Is there anything the Ukrainian government can do at this stage, or anybody else, any other side?
Well, the cooperation with those that are competent to lead this investigation is key to success. The OSCE Special Monitoring Mission offers its good officers to facilitate the dialogue on both sides of the contact line, to make sure that those that have the mandate to look into this incident and to work on this incident have proper access so that they can conduct and implement their mandate properly.
Okay, so it's more or less from you, there is no, are there any, I don't know, conditions to be met, or at this moment for you, on what stage, what is your role today?
We have a mandate that extends to all Ukraine. The dialogue facilitation extends to all Ukraine, including Eastern Ukraine and including the crash site. So we are there available. We will be available to anyone who wants to have access to the crash site. We go back to this area to conduct and implement our mandate, that is to monitor the situation on the ground, and we will continue to report on the situation there, but elsewhere in eastern Ukraine and across the entire territory of Ukraine, as we are mandated to.
And that's a very hard, I mean, we're speaking to the journalists, speaking to everybody who had been to the sites, you know, it changed a lot for everybody. So how it changed your work, how it changed your mission, but also you, because we're all human in the end,
Yes.
observing all this.
Well, I mean, this tragedy has changed the mission in many ways. First of all, we have proven as the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission that we can actually gain access and that we can allow others through our facilitation to gain access. We've also shown that with our presence and professionalism as observers, we could give some dignity back to those that have lost their lives there, and we could show those at home waiting in the Netherlands and Australia and from wherever these deceased people came from, that there was someone there that could report objectively of what actually happened. The mission itself also learned how to navigate between the two sites in more detail there. We also learned how to operate on a regular basis in territory far away from the area where we normally have been operating, and lessons learned from that tragedy still play an important role in our daily work. Myself, of course, I have not seen before an accident of this scale. I have seen many warlike situations elsewhere. I have seen death elsewhere, but have never seen the combination of an accident or incident of this scale combined with a conflict on the ground. That is something I will not forget, and certainly not when I'm flying a plane and these pictures always come up again.